So I've been thinking about starting this party game called Liar or Moron. The idea is to take a video game executive and then decide, based on their histories and the things they've said, whether they're a liar or a moron, as the ignorant, deflective, and often irresponsible things they say make them sound like liars. Or morons. Mostly it's not an either-or situation, the answer is typically both, and that's why the party game I've been coming up with doesn't actually work, because it's not a case of liar or moron, it's all too often a case of liar and moron. So anyway, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot. Let's bring up a totally unrelated man, who would like you all to believe that he is, in other situations, a totally unrelated man as well. Chiefly totally unrelated to the decades of emotional, mental, and physical and sexual assault that was perpetuated and propagated under his watch in Ubisoft. So if you've not been following the story, we did a video on this earlier in the week, and I will continue to do videos on it as developments come out, but Ubisoft has in the past few weeks faced multiple allegations that continue to come out regarding the treatment of workers at the company. Abuse, hate speech, threats, assault were commonplace, and have been commonplace at Ubisoft for years. And it's been happening at every echelon of the company in multiple studios around the world. It seems very much baked into Ubisoft's culture to victimize vulnerable people, marginalize others, and just generally promote, coddle, and protect rapists and abusers of all kinds. One such abuser was Sergei Hascoet. I keep butchering these names, but I'm not trying particularly hard in Sergei's case because he was one of the most prominent abusers at the company and also happened to be number 2 at the company, serving right underneath the CEO of the corporation and his buddy Yves Guillemot, the man who, at the top of the company, as the leader, as the one at the helm, has to answer some really tough, pertinent fucking questions about his role in all of this. Questions that he's currently not interested in answering properly. So the question remains, what role did Yves Guillemot, as the leader of the company, as the man in charge, as the captain of the ship, what role did he have in a company where abuse is so common? Stories have been coming out for weeks, and I know for a fact we ain't done yet. A place where the human resource department's primary role appears to be actively protecting the abusers, promoting them into positions of power, moving them around the company to avoid complaints and difficulties, refusing to properly investigate allegations when they come up. What role did the one man who is supposed to be the most responsible for the company play in what the company's done? Well, if you believe Yves, he had very little role in the whole thing, and it's not even really his fault. Fucking worm. When I last mentioned Yves Guillemot's position as CEO of Ubisoft in relation to the many fucking serious allegations, up to and including his second-in-command drunkenly strangling women and slipping people weed-laced cakes, I offered that aforementioned choice: liar or moron. Either he's a vile-hearted little fuck who oversaw and ignored all the abuse, or he's an imbecilic prick idiot who somehow helmed Ubisoft for decades and never knew what everyone else at the fucking company, and many people outside of it, knew. And of course, as I disclaimed earlier, it could very well easily be both. Now, an investor put it a lot more diplomatically than I did and offered a third solution. This was during a recent investor call where a lot of the game's press took away the story that Ubisoft will not be raising its prices next gen, at least at first. And yeah, under normal circumstances, that could be an interesting video I could talk about, but Ubisoft's the rape company, so, bit more pressing issue. Anyway, during Ubisoft's investor call, this person asked what many of us want to ask. How much did Yves know? The question was asked by Ken Rumpf, who said, "I wanted to ask a question of Yves as a founder and CEO of the company, and more important people than me will ask, but in a sense I could present the question regarding what's happened recently as kind of 3 options. Either as CEO you didn't know this was happening, which is not great. Or you perhaps didn't know enough and should have asked more. Maybe that's the answer. Or you knew, which of course would not be good. No, it wouldn't, Ken. Now, those are my possibilities. You may answer the question differently, but I'd like to ask what would be your answer to the question about your responsibility as CEO, and as I say, I'm asking the question, but probably more important people than me will ask it. Yeah, hopefully a criminal investigation will at some point. Yves Guillemot responded, and it was even more mealy-mouthed than his original puppy dog quasi-apology and promised to do better. He used a lot of words, but said pretty much fuck all, dodged accountability because of course he did, that's the game industry way, and struggled to say anything that didn't make him look like either a liar or a moron. So anyway, here's what the dick and balls said. He said, "Thank you for your question. In fact, each time we have been made aware of this conduct, we have made actually tough decisions." What's tough about it, Yves? Fire rapists! Fire them! Fire rapists, Yves! It's not a tough decision! And we made sure those decisions had a clear and positive impact. So that's very important. Is it, Yves? Well, it's nice of you to tell us what's important. It has now become clear that certain individuals betrayed the trust I placed in them, and something Ubisoft shared values. The something was unintelligible on the call, but at this point he may as well have just said something. So I have never compromised on my core values and ethics, and I never will. I will continue to run and transform Ubisoft to face today's and tomorrow's challenges. He said nothing. And really, Yves? Telling us that you've never compromised on your core values and ethics says nothing. I don't know what your core values and ethics are. Ubisoft has stated values and ethics many times over the years, and we found out that it didn't really, as a company, as an establishment, as a system, as an environment, it didn't believe in any of the fucking stuff it said. Think of all the Assassin's Creed games that have opened up with "this game was made by a diverse team," and then we found out more stories about the people in charge saying women don't sell in games. And don't worry, there's going to be an entirely different video on that little nugget. The values of Ubisoft amount to little more than highly performative wokeness and the promotion of sexual abusers to positions of power. The very notion of Ubisoft's ethics aren't worth literal shit. In Yves Guillemot's utterly spineless, cowardly answer, he didn't give a clear indication of what he actually knew. Ken Rumpf gave him one of three potential answers. Either he didn't know what was going on, either he did know what was going on, or he didn't know enough about what was going on. And the way that Yves has tried to answer this would pretty much put him in that third option, that third one, where he's saying that every time he has been made aware of something, he's made a tough decision. Not even telling us what the decisions are, which is very concerning because sometimes when these allegations came up in the company, the decision that was made was to promote the accused. At some point, we really are going to have an account of what Yves knew, when he knew each detail, and what he did with the knowledge each time. And it's clear Ubisoft does not want the public to know about what's going on. The Ubisoft doesn't even want the public to think about what's going on. As I've said before, it's spent the past week or so merrily burying all of the stories under trailer releases and previews and interviews for upcoming video games. In the public arena, Ubisoft is desperate to put all this behind it and move on as if nothing happened. Whenever it does begrudgingly address the allegations in public, it's vague about details in such a carefully crafted manner as to ensure that any Ubisoft fans that don't know about what happened still won't know what happened, even if they see Ubisoft address it. It's a very common corporate tactic, and it's disgusting to see Ubisoft apply it here. But that's what they want. They want you to move on and forget that dozens and dozens of stories of bullying and abuse and assault have come out of Ubisoft and continue to do so. Yves Guillemot thinks he can smooth talk his way out of this. And you know what? The sad fucking fact is he's probably right. It looks to me like Ubisoft and Yves Guillemot's primary goal at the moment is to ensure that they come out of all of this smelling of roses, and they are a big influential corporation. Yves Guillemot is a wealthy CEO. They know full well they have glitzy products to sell and that their fans will stick by them in exchange for the privilege of giving them money to access those products. But I urge you, don't forget what Ubisoft's done here, and don't forget how hard Ubisoft wants you to forget. I won't tell you not to buy their games, although I would recommend doing so used if you want to. I'm not going to call for a boycott. I'm not going to call for you to spend your every waking moment going after Ubisoft for this. That's going to be my job for a while. But at the very least, acknowledge it, and don't help them bury it.